This is something I wanted to do for a long time, but before we start this interview, I have here a copy of the April 28, 1991 Post-Star. And let me reach over here to see what page it's on. On page 7, under Happy Birthdays, it says, Danny Kogel, son of Valerie and Richard Kogel, will celebrate his 6th birthday on May the 1st. He has an older sister, Kristen Joy, 8, and a younger brother, Michael Bond, 22 and a half months. His grandparents are Joy and Aunt Chris of Kingston and Dorothy Kogel of Saugerties. Danny's great-grandmother is Hilda Etten of Saugerties, who celebrates her birthday with Danny. She will be 88 on May the 2nd. Is that correct, Randy? 88 or 87?
Correct.
You will be
88. 88, May 2nd, yeah.
Well, that's something. Okay, now let's see. I don't know just where to begin, but I'd like to have you go back as far as you can remember when you were a little girl and tell me a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, Art, I'd like to tell you that I've had 88 wonderful years.
I know you have.
I had a wonderful mother and father, 7 sisters and 2 brothers.
And what was your maiden name?
Dodds, Hilda Dodds.
Oh, Dodds.
D-O-D-D-S.
Uh-huh.
And they all passed away. They're all gone. I'm the last one.
You're a survivor, man.
Mm-hmm. I have had a wonderful married life. I met my husband in New York City. He was from Saugerties. I was from Oneida, New York.
So you were out in the western part of the state then?
Yes,
yeah.
Well, Oneida, yeah. And I lived with my sister in Jersey City at the time. And my brother-in-law was the YMCA secretary. And through him, I got a job in the International Committee of the YMCA in New York City, 347 Madison Avenue. And I started working there. Now, Cy was chief electrician at the time. The YMCA had 5 floors, and it was a wonderful place to work. But it happened that his office was on the same floor where I worked, and I had to pass his office to get to the elevator or get to my room. And he had broken his engagement, or not he had, but he had been going with a girl. They were engaged, and it was broken for one reason or another. And I guess because I was from the country, you know, and he was from the country, we had something in common. And
which proves, excuse me, that everything that happens for the best.
It seems so.
That's right.
As I said many times to our grandchildren, I said, when you meet the right one, you will know it. And 9 times out of 10, that happens. Not always, but most of the time. But anyway, we started dating and
love at first
eventually
sight, right?
married.
Love at first sight, right?
I think so. I think so. We had a wonderful marriage and 4 wonderful daughters, and just a great, great family. And before I forget what I'm talking about, 11 grandchildren and 12 great-grandchildren. And I personally feel that that is a wonderful record. No, I don't want this to go on for hours.
No, we got an hour's tape here. We have an hour's tape.
Well, I was born in Ferndale, New York, near Liberty, and I guess it was probably, let me see, I maybe was 5 years old.
Is it a farming family?
Pardon?
Were your folks farmers?
No, I don't really remember, truthfully, what Dad worked at when we were in Ferndale. I was only 5 years old, you know. And we had to take the train. We moved from there. My brother, youngest brother, was just a baby. And we took the train to Oneida. And my father worked for the United Community Limited, and in the factory at one time, and then he was employed as the chief caretaker of their private golf course. And we had a very, very nice home there and lived in back of the golf course. Um, there was a brook that connected our property with the golf course. And there, I can see him now walking down. There was a cabin on the golf course, and that's where he used to keep his tools. And we used to go up there many, many times and have, suppers. And it was a nice place to live, beautiful, really. And so we lived there for a good many years. I started kindergarten when we first moved up there, and I went, I guess, through 2 years of high school, and I didn't care that much for school, and there were really no factories around except housework and the United Community Limited to work for, and I was too young to work in that place, although all of my sisters did, most of them did, and so I know it was one Sunday, and I was upstairs reading a book, and they called me downstairs, and they asked if I would like to go down to Jersey City and live with my sister and her husband.
Now, how old were you then, Grandma?
Well, I was second year of high school. I've forgotten what year it would be,
Well,
how old. But anyhow, I said yes, I would go. And I went to business school down there for 6 months. And I learned more there than I did in high school, actually. It was a good move. And eventually I got that job. But as a child, my father never earned a great deal of money. In fact, very little. My mother never had to go out to work, but she had enough to do with 10 children. And but we used to have the best times. And I never owned a doll carriage, a bicycle, ice skate, anything that the young people have today.
Christmases were kind of slim, right?
I was the youngest girl in the family. And I don't think I was spoiled. I don't think they ever spoiled me. But I was shy. I was very quiet as a child. I remember that. And I would sit for hours and watch my one sister, Mary, iron.
Is that right?
It just fascinated me, really. And, but it was a good life. But my friends had things that I never had, but it just didn't seem to bother me that much.
I bet you wore a lot of hand-me-down clothes, right?
Oh, many, many. And, of course, homemade clothes that both my mother and my sister made.
Yeah.
I was the only one that did not know how to sew in the family. Everybody sewed for me. I could mend, but as far as making a dress or whatever, I was really dumb at that. And, but still, I was taught to make cakes and cook, and I knew what married life meant, and those things I learned. But there was one thing that I did love to do, and we used to have a lovely roller skating rink, and every week, it was called 50 cents. They had an organ, an automatic player organ that they played, and we used to, two girlfriends and I, we would go to the roller skating rink and just enjoyed it so much. And I know that after supper this one night, I always went up to my father and I said, Dad, could I have 50 cents to go roller skating? He never refused me, never. He always had 50 cents in his pocket too, see, and he never refused me, and I never demanded, I don't remember that he ever refused me, or my mother told me I couldn't go. But that was one enjoyment that I did have. And there was a lovely lake opposite the golf course. The road separated the lake and the golf course. And of course, those days we walked to school too.
Sure.
And we would hitch rides.
There was no such thing as a snow day back then, was
we used to in the winter. the sleighs, you know, the bobsleighs that they used in those days. We would wait till one came along, and then we would hitch a ride, jump on the back and hitch a ride. Another thing we used to do that I don't know if children do it these days or not, and was to fall back on a bank of snow and make an angel. You know, put our, did you ever do that?
No.
Yeah, just put our arms out, you know, and when you got up, it was in the form of an angel. And I can remember doing that. But we wore long black stockings, of course, and probably long underwear, and we were never cold.
Were the winters more severe back then than they are now?
I don't know if it was colder, but more snow, lots more snow, yeah. But we just accepted it. And as the winters came earlier than they do now, it seems. And I know when I was real young, Dad would come in and say, I saw the tracks of Santa Claus sleigh. Now come, I'll show you. And sure enough, we followed him when we went out. We saw the tracks of a sleigh. But and Christmas, I'll mention too that when I see what the children get now in the line of toys,
we really give them too much,
unbelievable.
don't we? We really give them too much.
We used to make our own toys. We used to climb trees and make out, take a branch, a big limb, and sit on it, and my cousins or friends, whoever, would have other limbs to sit on, and we would make ourselves as a mother, I'm Mrs. So-and-so, and go to visit whoever was in the tree, you know. We had lots of fun, and I played dominoes. My mother and father, they just loved dominoes. I learned to play pinochle. When I could hardly keep my eyes open at night. And my father, and sometimes my brother, and one of my sisters, and myself, we would play dominoes. But Dad always, he wasn't overly fat, but he had a big tummy, and he was, you know, a jolly and all. And he used to like me to sit after him, I guess it was. He would try to block my play every time. And I said, ooh, Dad, I'd put my hands up and say, ooh, Dad. And then his stomach would move like that, you know.
Like a bowl full of jelly.
Oh, and yes. It was just the greatest to watch him play.
Give me the names of all your sisters. What names did they have?
Well, the names there, the oldest was Esther and Elizabeth, but we always called her Beth or Betty. And Hannah, Mary, Grace, Dolly. Did I leave anybody else? Myself, and my brothers were Roy and Clark. Roy and Clark. And my mother's name was Ida. My father's name was John. And so we just, and I learned to play pinochle, as I said, at an early age of domino, and of course outside hide and seek. And we had a reunion one summer, and I still have pictures of that reunion. and we had the three-legged race. Did you ever have that?
Oh, yeah, in the bag.
Sack race. Get in the sack race and have those. Yeah. And I don't know how my mother did it in the church. My one sister, who was living at home at the time, was very ill. And as I said, my mother and father didn't have that much money. So when we decided to get married, we wanted to get married at Easter. But when we decided to get married, I wrote a letter to my folks, and my mother wrote back and said that she really couldn't afford it. Beth was so sick, and my sister that I was living with, by the way, was up helping to take care of Beth, and I was keeping house for my brother-in-law. So Mom said that if we wanted to get married, the best thing she could do, or the best thing to do would be to get married down there
Si had already proposed and you had accepted, right?
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, yes, for a while. And, we decided that we would do that. So a friend of my sister's who was younger than myself, in fact, she was still going to school, she stood up with us, and Si's cousin, Irving Lau from Malden, he stood up with Si. And we took the subway and the train. Well, I mean, they came over, and I had made lunch for all of them. And so I think it was on Friday. I wrote a talk was working. And so they all came for lunch, and after lunch, then we walked over to the church, which was just, not even a block away. And it was a Methodist church in Jersey City, and we were married in the parsonage, and the minister and his wife were there. In fact, I was in the choir of that church too, and my sister Hannah and Elmer, my brother-in-law, were members of that church at that time. And so we were married, and then after that, Si, by the way, he lived in Brooklyn, and I think we stopped there to get a few things that he had, and then we went out to Woodhaven to our home. So first of all, we stopped and we had dinner. Of course, it didn't work very long, so I didn't have too much money. And by the time I bought my outfit, my suit, and a little fur piece, and hat and shoes and stuff like that, but Si was very saving. And he, even as a boy, if he earned 50 cents, he saved 25 cents. And so it was furnished, with 2 bedrooms upstairs, and a nice living room, and dining room, and small kitchen, and it was really very lovely. Our first home was brand new. And that, in that home, Dorothy was born first, and Ruthie. And Ruthie was just an infant, a small baby, when we wanted to have another larger home. So we went out one Sunday, and we went out on the island. We heard about a new development, and it was Williston Park, near Mineola, and the house was under construction at that time, the one that we selected. And so we talked it over, and Si luckily had a lot of insurance, too much. And so with some of his insurance money, we made the down payment.
Now, excuse me, Grant, how much did a house cost back then?
I think it probably, if it probably was 8,000 or more, a little bit more. I know we sold it for 10,000, and it was a lovely, lovely house. I have no idea what it would be today. I have just no idea.
Probably 100,000.
It was probably, but we were so very happy there. As I said, in the first house that we rented, the two girls, Dorothy and Ruth, were born there, and I had them at home. I did not go to a hospital or anything, and it all worked out very well.
No midwife or anything, huh?
Well, there was a nurse that had lived across the street from us, and she came over and assisted the doctor. But I was such a greenhorn that, and my mother was with us. She came down from Oneida then, when all the children except the last one, she couldn't make it then when Carol was born. But she was with me, and we just made out just fine, wonderful.
What was Grant doing then? What was his job then?
Well, then, when we first married, of course, he continued with YMCA. But then there was a C.T. Morrison and Company, and they sold electrical supplies, and evidently he had gone there, and he and Mr. Morrison became very good friends, and it was Mr. Morrison that owned the store, and eventually, Si left the YMCA and went to work for Mr. Morrison. And in time, Mr. Morrison had a son, but he was not the type to follow in his father's footsteps. And so it ended up, Cy eventually bought the business, you see. And he did very, very well. They had, at one time, they had a store in White Plains, and beside the store in New York City. And he was very, very happy, and we made out, things just progressed naturally, it seemed to me. And then after we were there, pretty soon Betty was born, and she was born in the Catholic hospital in Jamaica, Long Island. And I know that my mother, who was fairly religious, she, at that time, the Catholic people and the Protestant people, they were more distant. And today, everything has changed, and they're both Protestant and Catholic are much more broad-minded.
Oh, sure.
But Mom, I know, she thought sure that they were going to bring my Betty up, because she would be a Catholic child. And so because they gave her a little cross, and so on. But it was wonderful, and then the last one to be born was Carol, and she was born in the Mineola Hospital. And Carol was the only one that had very much hair when the girls were born, and hers was pitch black, and so much of it. When she was 6 months old, I took her to a barber, a regular barber, and he gave her a Buster Brown haircut. And she never lost her hair, but it did turn blonde. So then, that was the children. We had some.
Now, speaking of your children, Gran, didn't you have a secret desire, you and Gramps, to have a son?
I thought when Carol was born, he never mentioned it. I don't know if we even discussed it, whether we wanted boys or girls. I just can't remember. As I say, I just took everything for granted, it seemed to me, in those days. And when, of course, it didn't matter when Ruthie came along, being a girl, but when Betty was also a girl, and then we knew we were going to have another baby, we thought, surely this one will be a boy, because he was quite a guy to remember his ancestors and so on. And I thought, gee, it would be wonderful if we could have a boy, and he could, call him his son and so on and so forth. But that man never mentioned what. When Carol was, and even the doctor told me that day she was born that he thought this one would be a boy. And when she was finally born, and he said, I'm sorry, he said, I had to bring in another girl, but he said, if you don't want her, Mrs. Post and I will be happy to have her, because they had no children. And but Cy seemed just as happy as with Carol as he did the others, 4 daughters. And I think, was it Jimmy, or who was it that had 5 daughters? Was it Jimmy? Not Jimmy Durante. One of the actors, anyway. They had the 5 daughters. Well, we had the 4 daughters. And they were all given an opportunity to go to college if they wished. Betty was the only one that decided she wanted to continue. She was a born school teacher. And Dorothy went to business right away. She worked in New York City also. And then Ruthie, she worked for, I guess it was it A&S's on Long Island, Garden City for a while, one of those big stores. And she was then just out of high school. She didn't want to go to college. She, had no desire to go. But she managed, she got along, and of course Carol, when she graduated, then we were ready to move upstate then, and she never really wanted college education either. But Betty,
Now, what prompted your move upstate, Gran?
what time?
Yeah, what prompted your move upstate?
Well, we used, as I said before, or I don't know if I said this, but I've told others, we used to go out to Mitchell Field, the flying field, and it wasn't too far from our home. It was in Mineola. And we used to go out there on Sunday afternoons to watch the planes come in and out. And even Lindbergh, we saw him the day before he flew off.
Is that right?
Was another
before
one.
He made his flight over, you mean, over?
Well, his plane was at Mitchell Field. And the Spirit of St. Louis, and I can see it now.
Is that right?
And his book, titled We, is a very good book, very wonderful book. Everybody should read it. But we used to spend a great deal of time. Of course, the children were all idle, watching the plane, and our neighbors usually went with us. And if we didn't go there, we went to the various beaches, and we really, Saturdays and Sundays, we just had really good times. And but you see, the war came along, Art, and the children, except for Dorothy, they were all in school, and so I started to worry a little bit. And by that time, you see, after 27 years of commuting into New York City,
getting a little tired of it.
Yes, and then too, the big stores, the competition, you see, between the big stores
Even
and
back
the small
then.
stores. Like Macy's and Gimbel's and all those stores.
The little ones were forced out, pretty much,
And so he, one day in particular, of course, we had warnings over the radio that the planes were close by, the enemy planes were close by, and be prepared. There were blackouts and all that we had to go through. And this one day the phone rang, and it was Dorothy, and she evidently she didn't work too far from where her father's store was. And whether she was with him or not, I can't remember. But anyway, she called up and she said, Mom, she said, the report just came over that the planes will be flying over Long Island. And he may have called up too. And he said, well, gather everything that you can together and have it in one place. School was excused, children came home, and for us to go down in the basement or go somewhere where it was safe, not just stay outside or indoors. And but it was a false alarm. They called afterwards, and it was a false alarm. But that started Cy worrying. At that time, he carried everything on his shoulders.
So this is back in the early 40s or late 30s?
Right. Yeah. He was the worrier. See, he was 6 years older than I, and if he made decisions, 9 times out of 10, he was correct, and I would go along with him. And
gee, he married a child bride, didn't he?
well, yes, I was 19 actually.
Yeah, you were old.
Late 19. Yeah. And as I say, he had been working, for quite a few years. He had the experience of going in the service and all that, where I didn't. I was just a country hick.
This was in the service in World War I for a time.
Yeah. In the Navy.
Right.
He didn't go overseas, however, but he was a Navy man. So we, when he came home, I guess it was that night that I was just speaking of, we talked it over, and he said, would I be happy moving upstate somewhere? And of course, as I said before, he was born in Saugerties, and he knew what it was like. He knew that he could make a living in the country. And
even though he'd never been a farmer or anything, right?
No. And so we hashed it out, and I said, evidently, I don't know what I said, but I agreed anyhow. And we decided that would be the best move. With having his children, not knowing what would happen to the business and everything else, and Betty was graduating that year from college, from high school rather, and Carol was entering high school, we thought then it would be a good time to move. We had no problem selling our home, and I think we sold for $10,000, which was a buy, because he finished the attic into a beautiful, beautiful bedroom, We had 3 bedrooms.
He was a
and
good carpenter then too,
he
right?
could do anything. He just was the handiest man. He had a section for the furnace and the washing machine and whatnot. But the rest of it was so beautiful. Paneling. I had curtains up at the little cellar windows, you know. We used to have parties and showers and whatnot down there. Great place for the kids. And no, he had even a floor, a wooden floor, and he was very talented. Of course, when he when we were first married, and then even after that, he uh, put aerials up for the radios, you know, on boats, on yachts, and everything. He got to meet some wonderful, wonderful people, and even Tommy Manville. You've heard of Tommy Manville? When Betty was born, that man came in the store one day, and of course, I was told we had another daughter, and he pulled $25 out of his wallet. He says, "Take this home and buy her a toy." And I, when Dorothy was little, and this one man, very wealthy, they had servants, they had butlers, they had